So I just arrived at the testing center because I need a test before my flight back to California. Let's see how it goes. In and out in about 5 minutes. I made the appointment online. I biked here for about 5 minutes, came in, did a nasal and throat swab, and should receive results in about 30 minutes. Moment of truth. Okay, I can get on the plane. So just checked in. That was relatively quick, took about 5 minutes. They asked me for my negative COVID test. There's not many people in line, but actually at the airport there's quite a lot of people, which is a bit worrying, but also a good sign that people are starting to travel again. So at the airport, getting in was relatively easy. Checking in, getting through the security gates took less than 20 minutes. There weren't too many people, but actually when you get into the main area, there was actually quite a lot of people, which was a bit nerve-wracking. But at the same time, it's good to see that people are out and about again. But they do make sure that you have to take a test and test negative, and you have to sign a form stating that you've tested negative or that you are fine. So my flight back to San Francisco was actually quite empty. I would say there was probably less than 30 people on my flight. And that's because right now it's actually quite difficult to enter the US unless you're a US citizen. But that meant we had an empty flight. I had one entire row to myself. Actually, each person had a whole row to themselves as well. And that meant the flight was actually quite comfortable for 10-11 hours, despite the fact that we had to wear a face mask for 10-11 hours. And when we arrived to San Francisco International Airport, it was actually quite empty, which meant getting through customs, immigration took around 10-15 minutes. So I'm back in San Francisco, and when I think back on the process of international travel, yes, it's a lot more complicated than before, pre-COVID, but it's actually not terrible. I had to get a negative antigen test a few days before my flight, and they only asked for it during check-in. They didn't even ask for it when I arrived in San Francisco. And my flight was relatively empty. Never before did I have one whole row to myself on a 10-hour flight. And I expect travel to be similar going forward, where you'll need a negative test result to get anywhere, and probably a lot more packed. I had an empty flight, but I think in a few months, flights are going to be full again. So I hope this was helpful, and safe travels.